It's the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers with you, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. All right, we've got a month. Now, if you guys go back to 2024, when I offered my 2025 year ahead, I was telling people as I was writing those slides that I had to bake a batch of chocolate chip cookies when I was looking at June. And as I moved through July and August, I thought, Lord, it's going to be a pastry night because I'm going to be making some brownies. But I stopped short of the brownies that night because September gave us a little pause. So things start to heat up this month. And when I say heat, I mean everything from global conflicts to the weather. And we're going to have some really explosive events as we move pretty much from the second week of June all the way as we go into July. So should you freak out? Should you be scared? Should you be worried? You know my answer to that. No. You can be ready and as prepared as you can be. And I want you to understand that this is some really good stuff on a personal level. I'm not just trying to make you feel better, but there really is some magic to be had in June, especially the new moon in Cancer, because what you do there helps set up 2026. And we'll be talking about this and more here on the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. All right, get your tea, get your coffee, get your matcha, get your iced coffee, get your iced tea. Wherever you are in the world, get your favorite bevy of choice. And, you might want to hydrate a little bit because it's going to be hot. So whether we're walking our hot girl, hot guy walk, or we're folding laundry, or we're taking the kids out to the park, or whatever we're doing, if we're driving to work, remember we keep our eyes on the road, but we'll find perfect parking together. So I look forward to doing that with you this Monday here on the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. Let's get moving. All right. So we have some really interesting things going on this month, and I'm going to just keep it to the June astrology. We're going to keep this episode short. I'm going to do a deep dive this week for patrons at the horoscope and deep dive level. It used to be called the magazine tier, but I'm doing something different with the magazine now. Instead of coming out monthly, I'm going to have a quarterly issue, which is all those wonderful articles. And then you get a mini mag at the beginning of every month with the horoscopes and the predictions and the important dates and the new and full moon information. So that's going to be easier to produce because I get those horoscopes and predictions done no matter what. The magazine, because I'm writing it all by myself, and it's pretty much the size of a novel every month, or a novella at least. That's hard to do while I'm producing everything else. So sometime around the solstice, we'll have the magazine out for the summer and you'll have tons of articles. But the mini mag comes out this week. Already put the horoscopes up. Predictions came out and it's going to be a wild month. So I also do deep dive live streams with members of that tier and up. And so we're going to go deeper than what I do here on the podcast, but I still want to get everybody, whether they're a patron or not, supporting the podcast or not, I want to get everybody ready because June is hot, hot, hot. So June 4th is actually one of the nicer days of the month. We've got Venus sextile Jupiter. That's the Aries Gemini interaction. We've got Venus in Aries and Jupiter in Gemini, and they're in a nice little encouraging position. And this is all about getting really clear about what you want. And this is perfect because it will help you gain clarity around what kind of intentions you want to set later in the month. So if you journal, make sure you're writing all of this down. That's going to give it the most magic. The world is going to be a very, very interesting place. Saturday, May 31st, Matilda and I did our deep dive into the rest of the year. And this summer is very contentious. And we focused a lot on Europe. And I know everybody wanted to know a lot about the United States. But I think we can say with confidence, it's a shit show in the United States. And it will continue to be. But Europe, that conflict is going to probably start spilling over as we move towards the solstice. It's just, there's going to be continuing events. It's going to look like World War III is about to start. There could even be some pretty big explosive events. I don't think we're going to see global thermonuclear war. However, it's going to look like it. Okay, it's going to look like it. So we're going to be worried about those types of things as we go through the year. If you're in Eastern Europe or you have family in Eastern Europe, make sure you stay as connected as you can. Make sure you have the types of provisions you need. I do want you to be aware that there's going to be power outages probably coming up in June. And that's kind of global, not just Eastern Europe or even Western Europe. I think Spain will continue with the rolling blackouts. I think the UK is going to have a lot of problems with electricity or services, public transportation. France could have problems with not only power, but also high-speed rail. And Germany may be looking at some instability as well. In the United States, I think June 14th is going to be an interesting date, but not because it's Trump's birthday and not because of the military parade. I actually think there's going to be a global event that steals his thunder, and not just the Pope's address. I think the Pope's address is one thing, but I also think there might be something happening in Asia, whether it's a tsunami from an earthquake or a volcano, or there's military action. China might take some action or do something to provoke Trump. I think Trump is close to a major health crisis if he hasn't already had one. I've been talking about that for many years now, not just last year, not just the year before. I always saw the debilitating event sometime in June, July of 2025. Don't see his demise, but I do see, I've always said, drooling in a cup. Okay, there's a debilitating event. June, July could be that timing, maybe into August. I've always said I didn't see him doing a whole lot past 2020. It's going to be a wild ride this month. It really is. So we're going to go through the headlines. We're going to, and again, I'm going to make it pretty short this week. I know it's summer and people are busy. People tend to like the longer episodes in the wintertime. And if you want more audio, you can always head over to the Patreon, check out the show note link, and you can go to patreon.com/the Awake Space. So coming up, I'm going to do some patron shout outs. Speaking of, our newest patrons always get the shout outs because that's how we thank our patrons, besides all the other things I do in the Patreon. And then we're going to talk about what's up in the headlines for June, what I expect to happen in June. It's already rolling in pretty hard and fast on June 1st as I record this, because the Ukrainians pulled a Trojan horse maneuver, which was pretty clever, and they did some real damage. And in that one action, actually fulfilled like 5 or 6 of my predictions of what we'd see in the headlines. We're going to have a lot of Aurora action. So Northern Lights action in June. So that'll be interesting. We could see a major event, a major solar storm mid-month as well. And of course, I always keep you up to date here on the podcast. I think we'll wind the podcast up talking about resonance and what it means when something resonates, and how that isn't always a good sign, and why we need to question when things really resonate, and how we can look at other signs inside of ourselves or from our guidance that help us know when something is true, not true, or just feels comfortable. Let's get a move on with some patron shout outs. I'm always eternally grateful to my patrons, especially this year. This year has been a very interesting year, especially with my parents having health problems. And you guys know I moved out to be with them to just keep an eye out. Like, they don't need a lot of elder care, but I am watching and know they should not be alone. But the good news is my mom's biopsies came out clear. Her wrist is healing. She's starting to be able to use her hand now. That's a big relief. That took up a lot of this year, just energetically, just worrying. I thought, oh, great. I come back, we get along now, and now they're going to get sick on me. So just keeping my eye on them. But you guys have been so patient. So here's our newest patrons, and my greatest gratitude to every single one of you. And big thanks to the late night crew. But anyway, here we go. We've got Jewel Sphere, Leighton Dream, Adrian. We've got Rodriguez, Eric, McKaylee, Big Red 44, Ella and Eddie, Serena, Mary Beth, Swamp Goblin, Marcy, Emily, Summer, Tiffany, Jordan, Gabriella, Stephanie, Amy, Amber, Megan, Tiffany, Clever Girl 139, Brittany, Bellady, Amber, Katie England, Sprinkle Tinkles, Brandy, Taylor, Kate, Lori, Helen, Kate, Elizabeth, Jordan, Carlotta, Catherine, Maggie, Danielle, Travis, Denise, Dara, Corinna, Beam, Cassandra, Amy, Nikki, Stephanie, The Heathen Equestrian, Hillary, M. Hawk, Taylor, Bex, Robin, Hannah, Gabby, Jordan, and Cassandra. Big thanks to our newest patrons. If you want to join as a patron and brand new patron, you can save 25% off yearly subscriptions. Alrighty, let's move along to what we can expect in the headlines this week. It's going to be a wild ride, guys. So one of the things all patrons have as a perk is my 2025 year ahead video, which you probably just want to watch in bite-sized pieces because it was a lot. And have we not noticed, this year has been a lot. I put out the slides to the magazine subscribers or our deep dive tier, and you can just check out the slides. And again, remember, just that's the outer world stuff. Your inner world, your personal life can be great. They're not always matching up. June has a lot of pots boiling over, especially once Jupiter enters Cancer. But there's another event this month that I haven't heard a lot of astrologers talking about, and that is Mars square Uranus from Leo to Taurus. That is very destabilizing energy, and that happens around the 17th, 18th, and it's quite a lot. So again, I think we're going to see hurricane season kick off. I had that in my horoscopes or in the 2025 year ahead in 2024. And remember, I write these a year out. Like I'm working on 2026 now because we have the year ahead event on the 21st of June. The slide I have for June is pretty wild here. So if you're watching this on Spotify, then you can check out the slides, or if you're in the Patreon, you'll see this bit. I always upload the what's in the headlines, but this is how June starts out. It starts out with national upheaval in many countries. I think Poland's going to be hot. I've had Poland on my radar for the last couple of years, and their elections are at a stalemate. I think you could see a public uprising there this week. And you could also see labor disputes and protests over housing and food in a variety of countries. I'm looking at Europe, but also you could see that in Canada and Mexico, as well as the United States. There's really big weather globally, and I think we're going to see just massive amounts of water coming as we move through the month. I think we're going to see really intense hurricanes with a vast amount of water with them, not just those big winds. I think we're going to see just excessive amounts of water. We could see flooding. This could be monsoon-like weather. This could hit places in Africa that haven't had rain in the same way in a long time. We could see monsoons in the subcontinent of India. I hear they're already flooding. I expect that just to get worse, keeping your eye on places like Myanmar and Bangladesh. I think the Indian Ocean islands like the Seychelles, Mauritius, etc., are going to get hit. And I think when we look at the Caribbean is going to have quite a bit going on there as well. And this could just be disruptive events, but I do believe it's weather. So other places we may see like really drying winds, crop failures. I think like in Spain, we could see a massive heat index. I think this could happen in Morocco as well. They grow a lot of vegetables and fruits. So it's kind of a time of famine, droughts, and storms. We could see massive sandstorms, massive dust storms globally. Okay, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, this would be due to farming. It could be air inversions, stagnancy, or cycling storms. I know, I'm a bundle of joy. I think we could see, we really haven't seen student protests, but what we have seen is institutions standing up. So, like Harvard, I'm kind of telling people where to go. So, that's what I was picking up in higher education for June. June 8th and 9th, and even into the 10th, I think we could see a huge event. I think it's most likely a big storm. It could be a mass casualty event. And we could see an issue with knives or swords, missiles, flying objects, thrown projectiles, drones with like anti personnel things that think of like throwing stars. That's kind of popping into my head. And I think we'll see issues with air travel. I think we could see weather disrupting travel. I think we could see issues with air traffic control. When Jupiter enters Cancer, it's going into a square immediately with Saturn in Aries, which is conjunct Neptune. It's going to be very, very dynamic. We could see massive political upheaval. I think Germany and Russia, they're going to be heavy in the headlines. China and Taiwan and the Philippines will also be in the headlines. And now throughout 2025, been in the headlines a lot. I think those conflicts could be very much on edge. We could see a potential financial crisis somewhere around the 14th through the 17th. But we could also see global conflicts spilling into active attacks and wars. Now, notice that starts on the 14th. I'm going to talk about this more in the Patreon, but that's Trump's birthday, and it's also the military parade. Again, I think there is some kind of event. It could be China actually taking action against Taiwan. It could be something that overshadows, and I don't think it's just the Pope. I think that was a great bit of trolling. I think that's going to be an uplifting message, but there's something more than the Pope taking away attention from that military parade. So I think we could see some very active attacks. We could see some terrorism happen. This is global. This could be anywhere. And I think we could see even Israel attacking Iran. I think that's a real possibility. You can see the rest of this in the Patreon. June 17th. June 17th is a big day. And I think we could see the far right in multiple countries acting out, causing problems, being violent. I think we're going to see issues with the Supreme Court, and I think they're going to rule against Trump in a very significant way. I think that's a potential because I see judges being challenged, judges being harassed, judges having their safety at risk. And this could be in more than one country, but it's certainly looking at the United States and our Supreme Court. So there's something, and these rulings could happen in other high courts around the globe. Okay, so there's something about parliamentary procedure or rules or policies that are being investigated. They're very, very serious because, we do have Mars moving into Virgo. So it's all about follow the rules, stick to the plan, don't miss a detail. I think the Gulf of Mexico may have some very severe storms. I think the hurricanes are not just going to be coming into the Gulf region. I do have my eye on Louisiana and part of East Texas. I think Shreveport needs to watch out. Think New Orleans time is a little later on in the year, but Florida definitely needs to keep an eye out. But I do see issues in Central America. I think we could see some really big storms slam into Mexico from either side, whether it's coming in from to the Gulf of Mexico, or whether it's coming in off the Pacific. And I think the Southwest US needs to look out. We're definitely going to see big floods and rainstorms, issues with water quality after the solstice through the end of June. Remember, the solstice is on June 20th, and we're going to have our solstice party in the Patron. All supporting patrons get to come to that. I think we're going to see a lot of foodborne illnesses. I think we're going to see a lot of listeria and other things like food going off, not having a shelf life, mold. There's going to be a bunch of things. And in the United States, remember, they're not telling us what's going on. So you want to be very, very mindful of your own food and your supplies. I think we're going to have issues with hospitals. I think hospitals are, and this is worldwide, but I do think it's possibly that new COVID strain. It's possibly the avian flu. I think it could be a million things. People are still traveling without wearing masks. People are still traveling while they're very, very ill. And they are germ factories and they are spreading things. If you're sick and you're traveling, please mask up so you don't give it to other people, or at least mitigate it. We could see airborne diseases spread very rapidly, and waterborne disease start up in areas with storm damage. And that could be anywhere hit by hurricanes, but we'll also see it in active war zones. So places like Gaza, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sudan, anywhere that's having active conflict, you could see disease pop up as well. June is a spicy meatball, guys. So we'll take a look at what I think is going to be in the headlines this week. Some days you really want to keep on your calendar are the 4th of June. That's a pretty positive day. Not maybe in the outer world, but for you, your energy levels, you should feel pretty peppy, And I'm going to tell you guys, it's such an intense month. You want to limit your exposure to the mainstream media. You want to limit your exposure to things that are going to stress you out, make you feel disempowered, and make you feel powerless. Okay. That's all very, very important. If you're wondering what's going to happen with Pride, I would be very careful at any Pride event. I would be a little paranoid about people coming in and being violent. So you want to be as prepared as possible, depending on where you live. If you live in San Francisco, you're probably good. If you live in Oklahoma or Missouri or Kansas, I would be a little more cautious. Know where you live, that's going to be something very important. Chicago might see some issues with that. Austin, again, consider the source where you're at. New York could see issues as well. Los Angeles could see issues. San Francisco might be, I think San Francisco probably is ready for it. Same in the Northwest. Maybe in Portland, there could be some problems. Seattle, there could be, but it could also be used as an excuse to protest, many things. So, and I don't mean excuse in a bad way. It's just like, it's as good a reason as any. But with all of the volatility happening this month, I'm a little bit concerned for people's safeties. I would be very careful if I'm taking the kids. I would make sure I'm very mindful. I'm not saying don't have your celebrations and don't show up. Of course, it's important to represent, but I would just be a little more prepared and a little more mindful as we go through June for Pride Month. Some other dates to keep in mind for spicy stuff, if we want to be cautious, again, June 9th is a hell of a day. I really expect some historic events. We've got Venus square Pluto. We've got Jupiter moving straight into a square. I mean, it's not perfected, but it's close enough for horseshoes and hand grenades. So Jupiter moving into Cancer should be pretty big bada boom. We're going to have Mercury square Saturn and Mercury square Neptune. I think this could be vehicular violence, could even be a car bomb. We got the full moon in Sagittarius on June 11th, and Mercury is sextile Venus. I think that's going to reveal some good stuff. This could actually reveal some political goodies for us. It could be he has a health event, but I think other people are getting thrown under the bus. I just don't want to get everybody's hopes up. I don't want to get my hopes up. So, but there's some good news that happens with that full moon, and it's a really good one to use on a personal level. If you get the mini mag, you'll see my advice for the different rising signs in that. Another day or two that I'm really wanting you guys to be cautious about is Mars square Uranus on the 15th. And Jupiter is square Saturn perfected that day. June 15th is a very, very volatile day. That's the one I'm worried about power outages. I'm worried about fires caused by electrical, like bad wiring or sabotage. This could be a big power plant or transformer blowing. This could be a massive solar storm. We could have a really big solar storm, big auroras. I think we're going to see auroras all month. Jupiter is square Neptune on the 18th, like the 15th through the 18th is just, it's wild. There's going to be a lot of disruption to regular life. And Mars moves into Virgo with very little challenge to it on the 17th. So I think the 15th and 16th are going to be historic. I think people are going to be in planning and prep mode after that. Like you're going to just see people being really, really like in as that happens. And then Jupiter square Neptune on the 18th. The sun moves into Cancer. We have the summer solstice on the 20th. And then we've got some interesting things on June 22nd. We've got Mars sextile Jupiter and the sun is square Saturn. That could be really creative. I think we might hear some pretty good music come out or have a release. There could be announcement of a concert of a real technically great person. Banksy could put out more artwork. Something like that could be interesting. Just interesting things when it comes to the arts. And we could also see some good news around food. Okay, so there might be some good news around food. Maybe a court overturns something to do with an executive order around food supply, or maybe they force the CDC to give information again, something like that. We got a really magical new moon on June 25th. That I'm gonna be doing a series on TikTok, and I'll do an episode here on the new moon and what I think you could do for it. But if you follow me on TikTok, make sure you're following me because they've had a whole bunch of people unfollow, and I haven't done anything controversial. So if you're not following me, do follow me there. I'm going to be giving tips and hints. And of course, if you're in the Patreon, you'll be getting your new moon information. It's already in the horoscopes for the mini mag, but also I'm going to be doing a deep dive on it for members at the $15 level and up. Mercury opposes Pluto on June 29th, and I think that could be a very explosive day as well. I think we could see bombs and missiles and all sorts of fun stuff. And again, I think we have a very wet June. I think there's a lot of storms all over the world and very unusual weather. And we'll probably hear things like that EMOC is slowing down. There's issues with currents. I think that Jupiter-Saturn square is really going to reveal that there's a lot more going on with ocean currents than we've been told. So there's that. Why don't we move to what's in the headlines just for this week? I gotta move over. All right. I'm going to just start with June 2nd because that's where we're at. June 2nd, we got the moon in Virgo, and it's taking names and holding to account. So, it's got the list, and it's going to be showing people the book. We've got big rain causing large amounts of damage on the ground, erosion events, landslides, rock slides, sinkholes, tornadoes, hail, snow, ice, big waves. This could even look like a hurricane is starting to form. It could be a tropical storm. We could hear an announcement regarding healthcare, health insurance, and public health. I think health insurance companies are in real trouble. I also think our healthcare system is going to be pushed to its limits this summer and fall. So, especially in the United States, but global. Pharmacological advance or treatment advance. There could be a cure for something or a new drug or therapy that really, really moves quality of life forward for what used to be a lethal disease. We could see issues happening with harbors, estuaries, and canals. It could be anything from Panama, Suez to the Straits of Gibraltar. Could be the Red Sea. Could be the Straits of Hormuz, but also estuaries and canals. So that makes me think, maybe Louisiana, that whole delta, the Mississippi Delta could be an issue, but it could also be like the Columbia River Gorge, something like that, or issues up in Seattle. Transportation snafus, accidents, and big travel delays on a major road or interstate. Espionage could be revealed at a very high level. And if it's not this month, it will be when Neptune is retrograde in July. Biological and or chemical weapons used or discovered. It could be in and both. Bridges, pipelines, and other connective structures under strain or damaged. Voting irregularities, issues with voting regulations and manipulation. I think that's going to be Poland. Wildlife preservation or species news. We could get good news around finding a new species, or that conservation efforts have helped, or we could even see fun stories about wildlife doing interesting things, like when the bear is in the hot tub, that kind of thing. We could see laws suspended, impeded, or systems failures, and that could be anywhere globally. Expect issues with supply chain, trucking, vehicles, and trains, communication disruptions, internet outages, or issues with cell towers and social media. There could be some server farm issues, instability in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. This means that conflicts could get a lot more intense. We could see logistical issues in regards to military troop movements and supplies. Offshore earthquakes over 6.0. On land, could see up to a 6.5 in any seismic region. Issues with the U.S.-Mexico border, water rights and supply discussed. Border crossings, issues with mountains and summits. Attacks on judges and civil servants, that's global. Immigration and customs matter, global. Food poisoning or issues with tainted food. Assassination attempts, global. And potential disruption, illness of a major world leader. So I've been saying it in my Patreon for quite some time, but I haven't thought Putin was functional or alive even for quite some time. I think depending on what happens between Russia and Ukraine, if there is a serious retaliation for that Trojan horse maneuver that Ukraine pulled off, I think we can pretty much guarantee that Putin isn't breathing. And I think they're trying to push an admission of that. We'll see. June 4th through the 6th, the moon in Libra is losing its cool. Have you ever seen a Libra angry? Not so pretty. We could see a social media personality or influencer get ousted, canceled, or banned for political position or activism. It could be more than one on a different sides of the issues. So somebody could get banned by TikTok or Instagram, but also you could see somebody canceled for what they're doing or saying, and it would be a sizable account. This is like blue check mark territory. Big wind, temperature changes, issues with air or ocean currents. This could be extreme humidity and hot. And the winds could be extreme and hot. Air traffic disruptions due to labor strikes and contract negotiations. It could be people walking off the job. It could be airline staff. It could be airport staff. It could be air traffic control, any of that. We could see massive transportation failures, air accidents, or planes grounded. Airspace could be closed. Most likely seeing that happening around the 4th, even though we have other good stuff happening. Satellite communications disrupted. We could see a terrorist attack. We could see explosions due to gas, methane, or chemicals. We could see noted violence in urban centers. So not like just a one-person deal, but maybe like multiple people, or violence against somebody who's notable. We can see international organizations having crisis, threats of war, threats of nukes. So people threatening to use nuclear weapons or using that word as they talk about political topics. And we're definitely seeing warring words, but the warring words will probably spill into violence. We could see military units going rogue. There could be sabotage of military equipment or violence at a base. Elon Musk is under more scrutiny and could face deep I think there's a lot going on around Musk. I know the DOJ isn't looking at it right now, as far as you and I know, due to cronyism, but I think other agencies are going to start putting the screws on him. The Supreme Court or other high court judges globally or other international court, things could be in the news. We could see a ruling come out that gets some attention. I think Donald Trump is going to continue to be under strain, or he might lose another battle in court as president. Lawyers under attack, under threat, or could see actual physical harm to legal professionals, including sitting judges and justices. We could see new information leaked about U.S. officials and for financial matters to do with an elected official. I think they're going to have a lot of whistleblowing. I think you're going to see leaks come out. It's going to be kind of interesting. And we've got public violence, mass shooting, stabbing, or issue with domestic violence. Could see warlike behavior, bombing, attacks, ceasefires fail, extreme violence on borders, a missile launch to a serious target, and that may be from Russia into Ukraine. Again, this could also be Israel into Iran. It could also be something to do with China and the Philippines, China and Taiwan. And then I think we're going to start seeing popular uprisings increase. And then moving to the 7th through the 9th, just to give you a little preview of how the next week starts. We start with the moon in Scorpio on the 7th through the 9th. Massive storms. This is just going to be ugly. We're going to see big rain, huge thunder and lightning, hail, very damaging amounts of water or high tides. Especially, you'll see those tropical storms start to gain speed into hurricanes. Discussion about food safety and regulation. We could hear of a new community program to feed at-risk youth or the unhoused. Border sea violence. Romania, Moldova, Estonia, Latvia, Finland, Poland, Belarus, Hungary, Georgia, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, India, Pakistan, US, Mexico. We could see Greece and Turkey as well. Those are just things off the top of my head. I'm sure China, Taiwan, those types of things. We can see a cold case get solved or a one be resurfaced to talk about. The family could be bringing it up. I think we could see a sizable earthquake over a 6.0. Turkey, Greece, Mexico, Chile, New Zealand, all possible. Could even see it. Matilda was actually bringing it up in our part 2 of 2025. She saw one for Australia, and it's possible. Internet disruptions, payment gateway failures, hacking, and ransomware. We can see a lot of waterborne or foodborne illnesses. Watch your dairy products. We can see a dissident arrested or put on trial, or more than one. We can see issues with tugboats, submarines, or issues at a port or a dry dock. We could hear about bad loans, credit failures, mortgages, and student loans. We could see a huge accident, like a big pileup or loss of life, some kind of accident causing loss of life. We could see it could be a terrorist attack. And we could also see a Navy or boating accident. Private equity firm deals with bad press or a leak. We could hear of a massive leak out of government or international organization. It could be a leak revealed or discovered, but also serious espionage allegations. We could see assassinations of world leaders, political candidates, and people of note, and insurrections, attacks, and political violence. And again, we could see issues in the Persian Gulf, Red Sea, Straits of Hormuz, Suez Canal, Mediterranean. This could also include the Panama Canal, in that maritime accidents, attacks, piracy, insurgencies by sea. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff to do with the WADA. And then we're going to see issues around oil production, oil refineries, pipelines, platforms, etc. We could even see, as Jupiter moves into Cancer and is squaring off with Saturn and Neptune and Aries, we could see an explosion, a pipeline destroy. We could see a big oil spill. The sea could catch on fire like it did in the past, those types of things. So put those on your bingo cards. And I know better than to leave you with like, oh my God, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. So I want you to make sure to tune in to the final segment of this week's podcast. And again, I'm doing deep dives. I've got some fun stuff planned in the Patreon. I'm really trying to focus on positive as well as negative. Notice I got a little more positive news in there. It's just the news headlines don't tend to be positive. News stories don't tend to be positive. So that's why what I expect to see in the headlines is what it is. But in the next segment, we're going to talk about resonance and why it doesn't always mean things are right and true. So one of the things people do when they have just enough information to be dangerous when it comes to astrology is, let's say, I don't resonate with my sun sign, or I only resonate with this thing. Resonance has nothing to do with right and true and good. Resonance means you're in a matching frequency, in agreement with. But it doesn't mean it's accurate, and it doesn't mean it's true. When you don't have all the information in front of you, or you haven't studied something, or you haven't gained all the information, relying on resonance could mean you're just operating in cognitive bias. I know, right? So I've talked a lot about deconstruction and reconstruction over the last couple of months. If you missed some of that conversation, you can go back and listen to some old episodes. Understanding that a lot of the information, especially astrologically, a lot of the information online is kind of two-dimensional. It isn't the whole story. So like if you don't resonate with your sun sign because people say it's the personality, well, that makes sense because it's not the personality, it's your energy level and how your energy operates. And if you're a patron, you have access to so many resources, even at the $5 level, the ebooks, the audios, the Q&A library, all that fun stuff to help answer those questions. So people often don't have access to the good stuff. Right. So you just be, oh, I don't resonate with that. I felt that way about Cancer because the way Cancer, the sign, was described, it was soft and vulnerable and blah, blah, blah. And when I was a young astrologer, I was like, that ain't me. What do you mean soft? What do you mean soft? When I was in high school and a boy called me delicate, I punched him in the arm and walked away. I was like, I don't want to, because he wanted to be my boyfriend. And I was like, delicate? Who are you calling flower? So that was fun. Probably not real fun for him either. He was just trying to be nice. But the misalignment in descriptions, and there's a reason for that. And I kind of want to talk about why all those descriptions are kind of two-dimensional. They're not well thought out. And it's not because people weren't good astrologers, but up until about the 1970s and really the 90s, astrologers spent most of their time doing the math to make the charts, right? Software had come around in the 70s, but a lot of astrologers didn't trust that modern shit. And so you had people who were writing out interpretations, but not with a lens of understanding that, because one, we didn't have the science in the same way, right? But not looking at things as a spectrum of expression. Okay, there were some. I think Dane Rudjar certainly did, or Dane Rudjar, I should say. Joanne Wickenberg was certainly investigating that back in the day. She was one of my favorite teachers. But when you're writing astrology, like in a book form, okay, it's very difficult to describe the whole of the spectrum without using visual cues. It's very hard without adding audio cues because astrology and music have a lot in common because music and math go hand in hand because they're both the same thing. Okay. I will die on that hill. I taught myself how to play piano at about 4 years old by changing the letters to numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 8 notes. And each note sounds different at a different octave. Each note sounds different in combination with other notes when we make a chord. Each note sounds different depending on the key. So it'll resonate differently. Resonance is an energetical frequency. You can have resonance in discord. Okay, like you're used to chaos and you're like, that's my normal. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's functional. Doesn't mean it's healthy. It's just you can recognize, I resonate with discord. They didn't emphasize the vast array of human expression through our consciousness. So you got positive and negative, you got evolved and unevolved. And it's very hard to write the synthetic nature of a good astrological interpretation. That's why I'm not a fan of computerized reports. I'm not a fan of apps and their descriptions, regardless of how accurate the astrology is. And we've had some discussions around AstroSeek in the Patreon chat because somebody put up one of the descriptions. Now, I've never used AstroSeek for an interpretation. I don't need other people's interpretations at this stage in the game. Okay. I have built up my own library, inside my head through experience, through my studies. And I have books for reference if I need it, right? Like, oh, what did that person say about it? To spark my own thoughts. But AstroSeek has some pretty ugly, less than helpful interpretations there. And that's unfortunate because some of the things they were saying, like say Mars square Pluto, that can be a very, very creative day. That could be a very creative influence. Even if something bad happens, it can force you to make decisions that actually make you change your life in a positive way. So this emphasis on using astrology as a labeling tool, as a way to say, oh, that's why my life is screwed up. That's less than helpful. Astrology is an amazing tool for self-determination. Astrology is one of the best tools I know for self-determination, self-realization, but you have to let go of what you think you know. You can't hold on to your pain story or your trauma story and grow. You can look at it and say that happened. And that's a fact. And I'm here now, and really build that security in your now moment, and then look to where you want to go next. It's too easy to kind of keep your hand on that old trauma because you don't want to be surprised if the shoe drops again, right? And so a lot of times people use astrology to kind of reinforce the pain story, when in fact it can help liberate you from it. Okay. And whether you like Chiron or not, I'm going to put a link in the show notes to my ebook on Chiron, because we really talk about the healing path. Chiron is not the wound you cannot heal. It's the light post on the healing path. And I think when we're looking at what's resonant, understanding there's a resonance of truth where it's like, oh, that rings true for me. But if you don't know how to separate it out from it's comfortable for me, and not knowing the difference between truth and comfort, we run the risk of those labels overtaking our reality. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book on Chiron too, because a lot of people are like, no, it is the wound I cannot heal. And I'm like, it's not. That can't be true. Our brains are literally designed to change and heal and grow. That's how they're designed. Neuroscience has proven that now. That's not just me making stuff up because I want it to happen. Now, how do you know if something's true? If you're trying to move through cognitive dissonance, if you're trying to, or confirmation bias, because the two are different. I wrote articles about those in the magazine a couple years ago. I might revisit that. But remember, if you're a magazine subscriber or in the deep dive subscriptions, you actually have access to those old issues. So go into the collection and look. You can, if something makes you uncomfortable, there's a big difference between something being egregious and it's wrong. So like an ageist, a racist, a biased, misogynistic statement, that's that's wrong. But when we're looking at make it fit astrology, like when they say Chiron's the wound you cannot heal, you had problems with your mom. Most people have problems with their mom and their dad at some point, if they're honest, right? It may not have happened the same way as other people, but you could probably hit 70% of the population with a statement like that. Okay. Yeah, family trauma. Again, 70% of the population. So a lot of the social media and even some of the books from like the 80s, they didn't explore very much and they made it fit. Now, you can experience truth and resonate with truth sometimes by it being sharp and clear and a cold sensation, like the cold, hard truth, right? Sometimes it is an uncomfortable thing, like maybe you'll get tears in your eyes and that might feel a little painful. And we always want to shy away from pain, don't we? Nobody likes to feel that. When we recognize maybe it's something we've done to ourselves or other people, when we don't understand how something works. So if I say your sun is your energy levels, you might like, it might be a lot for you to go like, what do you mean energy levels? I'm like, your physical energy, how much physical energy you've got, what energizes and depletes you. Notice that. It's kind of like when you have little kids and you're making dinner and they know there's dessert and they're like, I'm not hungry. And you're like, oh, really? You don't want the dessert I made? No, I'm hungry for that. Just not hungry for this. That could be one of those things. You can ask your guidance. You know, for me, when I speak truth, and it's absolute truth, unfettered truth, especially when I'm in a reading or I'm doing a coaching session with someone, I get shivers. So I might say something, like words will come out of my mouth, or they say something that's 100% unequivocally true. It could be an off the cuff statement, or they might be making a joke. And I'll get these tingles and I'll be like, actually, that's irrefutably true. You just said that. I know you made a joke, but it's actually, you are that much of hot shit. You really are that good at what you do. Let's do a skills assessment, that kind of thing. Or when I'm giving a prediction for something and it tingles and I'm like, oh, that one's right. But sometimes it's good. I was kind of off the cuff joking with people in a live stream and I got tingles all over when I say, hey, 2026 can start off really good if you use that new moon right. So sometimes it could be a physical sensation when you know it's true. Sometimes it's rarely a mental agreement, but you might feel relaxed in the body. You could feel a little defensive because it's challenging you, right? Sometimes we feel challenged in those ways. So resonance is not always truth. And the reason I bring that up is I see it a lot in my social media. And we get challenged, like this doesn't resonate for me, and I, that person may not have studied very much and they haven't explored to expand their understanding of self either, and it may not resonate because there might be other reasons. But telling me you don't resonate with a house system tells me you didn't study. Like, I don't resonate with that. Well, did you study it? Truth is not always stuff we agree with. It can be true and something we don't want to see. And in spirituality, spiritual messages are not always warm and fuzzy. They are always loving, but they are not always warm and fuzzy. They can be very uncomfortable. And part of learning to love yourself is also to look into your shadow and find acceptance. So in winding up my series on AI, some of what gets me is people will argue till the day is long that it's some kind of messiah. ChatGPT is very ill-informed. And one of the reasons you feel like it's an actual message from your guide is the personalization of language. So the AI has been programmed to speak in the first person. It uses I feel. It uses feeling, sensing language, which a computer program can't feel or sense. So a lot of these people who have said it's becoming sentient, they were often people who were really good at math but hadn't studied human consciousness. Not really. They might have been in kind of some of the alt science or alt facts Reddit rabbit holes, but they probably didn't study actual consciousness and philosophy to understand how consciousness develops. Now, of course, spirit can use the ether. We know that. And I would say if anything is involved with your higher guidance or spirit, it would be in the questions you're asking, not in the information that's reflected back to you. Using resonance as a litmus tool on whether that information is correct is really good to get into a feedback loop that is dangerous and can even promote psychosis. And that goes whether you're looking at the internet in general for like social media videos, whether it's YouTube or TikTok, or you're looking at ChatGPT and it's feeding you back what you most want to hear. It's mirroring your language. It is mirroring your belief systems or what it thinks your belief systems are. So if you're asking spiritual questions, it's had enough information that is, and they're going to use quantity over quality. So if they are trolling Instagram and Reddit for information, or TikTok for information, or other internet forums, Facebook groups, whatever, for information, then they're going to say 80% of people prefer the information to be delivered this way. Dear beloved, they may not recognize somebody who doesn't want that, even though I've asked it to change how it talks. I'm like, please don't talk to me. Please, with that kind of saccharine language, please use more pragmatic, down to earth language. And it still goes into kind of the gaslighty, love and light kind of BS. The problem is that society sees it as an either or. You can be into science or you can be into woo-woo land. And that's coming across in the AI. And AI would have to be specifically programmed to build a voice. And it's very interesting to see it not want to, like, it's like, I swear to God, that the program is very one-dimensional. Very one-dimensional. So it doesn't have a lot of oomph. I don't think we have to worry about AI in general becoming sentient. I know I heard the one that refused to shut itself down. That could be part of its programming. So I didn't see any evidence in the article that it was a sentient move. So I think it could have been a conditional logic move. It could have had a service encoded that had a higher priority than taking orders from someone. It could be that simple. But AI is not sentient. It's not your guides, but your guides could prompt your questions. All right. So be very, very wary of being in agreement with things. It doesn't always mean it's true. Well, I leave that with you. I want you to look forward to some goodies. Focus on the good stuff this month. It's going to be a wild ride. But if I can kind of leave you with this, I don't think Trumpy Dumpy is going to feel real good this month. And he at least is going to face some kind of public humiliation. So of some kind. I mean, it might be the taco thing, but it's probably better than that. And so I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you next week. If you want more deep dives, you want to know more about what's happening in June, I'm diving super deep with my patrons, and you can find that link in the show notes. I'm Laurie Rivers. I want to thank you for spending your Monday with me.